Thank you, Bob. Can you hear me? No.
Do you want,
I don't think I
Yes,
Okay.
you need it.
I need it.
you can project too.
Can you hear? Oh, that's better. Thank you, Bob, for having me. Thank you all for staying. I would like to read a poem in my book. It's for a dear friend, mentor, a wonderful poet, A.V. Christie, who left this world April 7th, 8 years ago. And this poem is called Roar for A.V. Every April, when the explosions of forsythia occur, I recall the blast of my landlord's chainsaw, how without any warning he hacked down to nubs the forsythia that lit my deck. I wept from the shock of it, for the bell blossoms executed, for the leaves deprived of their nascence, for my own helplessness. April 7th, cancer took your life, but I keep hearing your laugh, exploding in the dark of the movie theater, singular and irrepressible. It landed on the ears of the staid viewers like an insult, like your vow to vitality. Second poem is about a childhood refuge called The Roost. It roosted on the watershed in Virginia in Reiner, which was about 100 population when I was going there. And it's called Roost. It's the first poem. Those cows at the roost. Below the bedroom window, mornings you could hear them munching. Nights they would lie in the dark, their backs to us, huge convalescent lumps, breathing on the fields. In the dream I'm running, a suitcase bumping each hip, a ticket to the future fluttering from my mouth. I'm boarding the train when I turn to face whole herds of Holsteins, gazing. Come back, their eyes implore, and the dream ends. They resume the long walk back to the barn without me, as well they should. While built for birth and giving milk, they are not particularly kind. Attachment unsettles them. Beyond bearing witness, they can't commit to much. Evenings, they must still stroll to the barbed wire fence, stand by the pine where the yellow jackets nest, and stare and chew. When they walk, their bodies make a swishing sound, each step deliberate as one freight car knocking another. The next poem is for my mother, who's 91 and declining pretty rapidly. It is page 22. Mother love. When my cat perched upside down from the bluebird house and peered down into the opening, the mother bird out of nowhere swooped down and brushed his back with her wings. I recalled that spring night my mother, cloaked in her black lace mantilla, greeted me at the door, my sisters in tow, and bore us to the Colony House Motel because a bat was in the house. My sisters and I, blasé about the bat, reveled in spending a night in a motel and having pecan waffles at the Tottle House before school the next day. It turned out the bat had gotten out of the house and the exterminator had come for naught. It turned out the baby bluebirds were oblivious as my sisters and I to inherent harm. It turns out that my mother, young and glamorous, the envy of all my friends, now in her 80s, lies in her head in my lap, nested, chin raised, exposing whiskers. She asks and trusts me to tweeze. I brush my wings across her face. This is a poem, not a news report. And to be equitable, here's a dad poem. This is a eulogy for Robert T. Barham. There's an epigraph by James Moffat. To look at anything, you must be the thing you see. James Moffat. My father bore witness to the things of this world, but he wouldn't presume to be them. He seemed to form alliances with birds. Once a bobwhite whistled back, and persimmons, mountain laurels, chinkapin bushes, and he needed to know the names of things. As a child, I grew tired of his botanical litanies, but you there, tree, fruit, leaf, or fern would not do. He held a reverence for rituals, too. Walks required walking sticks, carved ones no less, and cooking oatmeal every morning became a solemn enactment. The last time he came to visit, I took him to Reading Terminal Market, where he insisted on buying a fish, a halibut, to take smelling to high heaven on the train to cook for our dinner. The preparation was elaborate. A profusion of spices, commentary on the importance of garlic and seasoning salt and high heat, and the finished fish far too bony to eat. Page 49. This is another mother poem, and the title for my book came out of this poem, and it's called Snake Story. At least 20 shots rang from the rifle you fired close range at the black snake, our cellar dweller I'd named Joe the summer I was 10. He'd stopped the mice nesting in the pink brocade chair. You were the youngest mother on the block, a glittering bracelet I flaunted at the kindergarten kids on the train ride to Garden City. The hairdresser swore we were sisters and called you glamorous. All that glitters is not gold, was my father's retort to his friend who had said, your wife is gorgeous. When I was 14, he announced he was leaving. After you shot the snake, you pelted it with rocks. What I remember most is the time it took the snake to die, how it shone, writhing magnificently in the dust. A lighter note. And the last poem I'll read from my book is called Filigree. I think it's self-explanatory. Those little post-it, I don't have the eye-hand coordination for that, so I made a table of content. But I'm not doing real well with that either. Okay, so, page 37. It's a small book. Okay, Filigree. Seeing her backlit like that almost seems illicit. The caught beetle, recalcitrant and twice her size, her web the largest I have seen. A grid of filaments that shimmer on the window screen, and then dismantled. In the morning, no such suspension, though a leaf shard hangs, and from the porch a glint of cable stretches toward a tree. In the corners of the house, more transfigurations. Mosquito leg, moth wing. Thank you. So now I'm going to read a couple of ekphrastic poems, a very ugly word for poems about beautiful made objects. And this one is about a cloisonné stamp box that I inherited from my grandmother, and I just love it. Cloisonné stamp box. Tiny reliquary for those obsolete, single lickable stamps my grandmother would slide up the brass incline inside. Cloisonné adorns the now dull brass box's top, sides, and front, turquoise backgrounds bursting with leaves, with raised lacquered fruits, flowers, bugs, and leaves that sometimes dwarf the other life forms, but all attached to wire tendrils that emanate and delight. I still just love to open it and feel the weight of the hinged lid when it falls shut. That hollow metal click, efficient as a resolution. This one's called Cast Iron Bookends of Girls in Ladderback Chairs. No doubt, and the speaker is the older of the two girls. No doubt your books neatly lined up between these cast iron chairs my sister and I occupy bring you delight, but consider what the sculptor had in mind. Our hair is tousled from sleep, our nightgowns wrinkled, our legs akimbo, our feet bare. But most of all, we sit side saddle, halfway on and halfway off, rocking back in laughter, holding on with one hand to the top of the chair. My little sister's kitten barely rests between her midriff and thigh. The older cats stay wisely underneath the chairs. But the source of our gaze and reason for our laughter is ours to know and yours to find out. And reading is the last thing on our minds. Thank you. I'm getting to the end. I have 2 pandemic poems. The patience of trees and birds amidst the pandemic. And the U is, well, the U is a tree being addressed. You've stood in place, sometimes entwined with another, longer than I have lived. Sheltered in place from the pandemic, I watch from my window the lacy leaves of the green Japanese maple lift and sway in the breeze. So many trees surround me, bear witness to the birds who rest on their limbs, bear witness to the human who listens to the birds who call to one another and sing, each hopeful note, a momentary little antidote. Thanks. This is another pandemic poem, and the speaker here is a tree. And the title sort of marches into the body of the poem. Because of wind, we bend, not in supplication, but in unison with air. Because of wind, our autumn bright leaves, humbled, dim to dream, and the sky follows suit. And the last 2, and I promise they're short, I just wrote, I went over a year without writing, and something has emerged. I mean, these are 2 drafts, but I'm just thrilled that I can write again. And Nat and Kathy, you've heard dusk poems. This is a new dusk poem. And this one's called, the title also sort of barges into the body of the poem. The title is It's Dusk Again. It's dusk again, and insistent as smoke, boundaries and birdsong dissolve. They're turning in, I'm turning not to bed, not to meal nor bed. This stillness suffices. There's a stalling before dark, a lessening of the light of spring. Trees and lawns, stilled and flat as a set, but lingering. Thank you. This is the most recent poem. It's a draft. It's called Interim. I wrote in my journal, whatever this is feels larval. But it wasn't till I read Edwin Way Teal's description of queen Polistes wasps who travel forth from crannies and whose nectar is the first food of the tiny larva that I realized I'm more larva than queen. Maybe the this is crawling forth from the last year's writer's block, not with new poems, but not without faith that they'll emerge. I'm embryonic, elemental, freed from the fear of the final dearth, the attendant lashings. I'm an empty, silent page amidst spring's racket and other sweet leavings. Oh.